They called it a detention center. It was basically a jail. I walked through security guards and metal detectors, down a long, dark hall. I was led to a meeting room, a compact space where my client, Hussein, was waiting. After I sat down, he told me his story. He escaped his town in Somalia, traveled alone for many months, finally ending up in the United States. He was seeking asylum. Mandatory detention is the practice of detaining or imprisoning people seeking political asylum, or those who are considered to be unauthorized arrivals into a country. Hussein was 22 years old, a young adult with no family or friends to help him in this strange new place. I was trying to get my career on track. When I graduated law school in San Francisco and returned home to the LA area, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. My father was out of the picture. My sister was a full-time college student, and I spent the next 3 years as caretaker. My roles were many: driver, grocery shopper, questioner of medical professionals, handholder, 911 emergency caller. I became intimately familiar with the local pharmacy and with a slew of medications. At one point in the hospital, my mom joked to me, "You're supposed to be practicing law, not medicine." But I couldn't work in law and help my mom at the same time. I chose to do what was the most important. She'd always had my back, and now I had hers. After my mom passed, I got a job at a small law firm as an associate in insurance subrogation. Less than a year later, they laid me off. This led to my first gig as an electronic discovery attorney. I was hired as a consultant to sift through massive amounts of documents on special software, reviewing them for the duration of the project. I had one project in Spanish, in which I'd become fluent while studying and living in Mexico during college. After that project ended, I had another one in English. Then I went to live with my grandmother in San Diego and took on this immigration work with Hussein as a volunteer. While I was growing up, my mother had worked with immigrants in refugee resettlement, helping new immigrants find jobs, learn English, and manage their lives as they transitioned to becoming American. She was well qualified for this, having immigrated in the late 70s, at the last possible moment before the revolution in Iran. I heard many stories about my mother's clients and their difficult lives. I also heard stories about my mom's past life. She was a television producer and director at National Iranian Radio and Television, a woman in a Muslim-majority country, and a member of a minority group as a Jewish woman, working in broadcast television. That doesn't sound like the Iran we hear about in the news today. I took Hussein's case pro bono. It was more work than I'd bargained for. I did a lot of research, found and connected with people who had known his family, communicated with psychological professionals assigned to the case, and visited Hussein multiple times in the detention center. Working with Hussein, I saw a reflection of myself. I never thought about him being Muslim or my being Jewish. I only thought here was someone who had lost everyone important in his life, who had been through major trauma. Here was someone who had to move forward, a human being who was lost and didn't know where he would go. And on some level, I could relate. At the time, after I lost my mom, while living with my grandmother, she too passed away. My extended family decided to sell her house. I had to move out. I didn't know where I would go. When I was a child, I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to help people. Then, as a college student, I realized I didn't like chemistry. Law, on the other hand, was inspiring to me, and the skills it required were skills I was strong in: reading, writing, and logic. I decided I would go to law school. I would help people using words to inform and persuade others on behalf of people who needed it. So for me, that brief stint with Hussein was the most rewarding experience I've ever had as a lawyer. My job was to complete Hussein's I-589 application for asylum with all supporting documentation and to present it at the hearing. After I presented his case to the immigration judge, I'm proud to say he was granted asylum and released. Now, when I'm in between document review projects, I work as a substitute English teacher in the Los Angeles Unified School District. I'm also an after-school teacher of Hebrew and Judaic studies. For the past few years, I felt like I've been standing at a fork in the road. One path says teacher, the other says law. I would love to spend my life on one path. I've been knocking at the teaching door louder and louder. I've been ignoring the law-related path, not sure how to approach that door. It's been a while since it was open in any meaningful way. I just want to do something meaningful, so when it's all over, I know I've made a difference. Like with my mom, like with Hussein. I had their backs. Because for me, I think that's what it means to have my own back. There's an old Hasidic story I've been thinking about lately. We are in an Iranian American center, so, as my Persian grandmother used to say at the start of a story, Yeki bud, yeki nabud, or once upon a time, there lived a rabbi named Zusha. He lived a simple life. One day, in his old age, he came to his students with tears in his eyes. He told them he was upset because, he said, "When I stand before the angels in the world to come, I see now they will not ask me, 'Zusha, why were you not like Abraham, kind and generous beyond measure?' They will not ask me, 'Zusha, why were you not like Moses, leading people out of slavery?' The question they will ask me is, 'Zusha, why were you not like Zusha?'" How do we live a life without regrets about why we were not? I think it begins with having the integrity to be true to ourselves. If we know who we are, we will know what we should do.